And then I'm going to play the intro. What up, folks? I'm live with Ryan Winkle. We are going to have a discussion on Mesa, Arizona. But first, a message from our sponsor. And I'm the sponsor.
Nice.
How's it going, Ryan?
It's going awesome, man. It's awesome. I missed your original intro with the guy dancing.
Oh, me or the cop dancing or me dancing?
The cop dancing. That was a good intro, and the song was good too.
Yeah, that was fun to make. I made the music for that, and then cut the video up so the cops dancing matched the music.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm really hoping that we got some Mesa residents in the chat or that will watch this later on, because if you're unhappy with the way that your city has been operating over the past, I don't know, 20 fucking years, this is your opportunity to do something about it. The primary is in, what's the date today? 4 days. 4 days. It's on the 30th. So you have 4 days.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but today is actually the last day you can walk in and early vote. You can walk in and drop off that ballot if you have a ballot, and then you have to wait and go on the day on the 30th.
Okay, so if you're watching today and you want to vote for Ryan, you can go down today and cast an early vote for him, or you can wait till the 30th on the primary and cast a vote then. Kale Hayes says, "Are you winning?" I'm guessing he's asking, do you know where you're ranking at?
That's a hard question because local races don't get a lot of attention, kind of like the nationals where they do polling all the time. Locally, there's been some polls, but they're generally done by certain campaigns, and they make those polls look good for their campaign to discourage voting for other campaigns. So to answer your question, I mean, I've texted, you know, as annoying as it is, like 200,000 different people, all these different things, social media, and I get a lot of feedback, a lot of good feedback. So I would assume, I mean, by the feedback, I'm winning. Plus, there's ways of mathing it out to try to figure out, you know, how you think you're doing, but in all reality, you don't know.
So I go on Facebook and Instagram and X and YouTube, and I'm constantly looking up things for the mayoral race in Mesa, and you and that other younger guy are the only ones that I ever see on social media.
Yeah, I mean, social media has a way of doing that through their algorithms, right? And so I think that's why social media advertising has kind of lost its flair in a lot of the platforms like Facebook, because they only show you what you like. So even if you're putting money on something, it doesn't necessarily work.
So a lot of people are probably wondering, how did we meet? I'll let you tell that story.
I'm trying to remember the first time we met. I know we met like randomly by a phone call, and I think I caught one of your stories or something like that. And I was watching it because I watched a lot of the First Amendment auditors, and I thought that you had a kind of a fun channel. I mean, I don't think, maybe not everyone thinks it's fun, but I thought it was fun. And I like watching things, you know, when you're laying there at night looking to see what's happening in the city, and I'm always looking up city stuff. And then I don't know if I reached out to you or reached out to me, or it was one of those messages through Instagram or something, right? And then you ended up saying, yeah, well, you need to look into this and look into that because here's some things that are happening you probably don't know about. And then for whatever reason, we just chatted. And then I ended up showing up to one of your court dates where, I mean, I didn't see every piece of it, so I don't know the whole story, but from what I saw, like, you didn't have a whole lot of room for them. They weren't giving you a whole lot of room to talk or anything like that. So
no. And you were there in the beginning when the court date started. Do you remember the judge threatening everybody not to record anything?
Yep. They said nobody could have a camera inside the court.
Yeah, we did anyway.
There's always, I mean, you know, in Arizona, it's a single consent state, right?
Yeah. I don't have to ask nobody. Yep. There's no laws that say I can't. It's just their little rules. But judges can't make laws, and they can't enforce rules. So why don't you tell people that care and that are thinking about voting for you what kind of things you've been running on as you know, as you're in your run for mayor? Like, what are the talking points essentially for what you're going to do, what your plan is to change things? I mean, what problems have you identified from the outside looking in that you want to jump in and make a difference in?
Right on, right on. All right, so Ryan Winkle running for Mesa mayor. It's kind of hard to say, but what it all comes down to really is people's interaction with the city and how they actually take part and take responsibility of the city's actions, right? And what decision-making power does a person have? Like me in my neighborhood, what power do I have? I mean, I could give you a list of like, oh, let's talk about residents and let's put residents in positions that are better for them. Let's put small businesses and small business services and cities as a service and you know, homelessness issues and unsheltered, unhoused. I mean, there's a lot of things around those things, but they generally all get solved better when more people in the community have better decision-making power.
Okay. So, like, what do you mean by better decision-making power? Like, you're going to create some kind of citizen board for something, or like if a citizen comes into a public meeting and says, Mayor Winkle, we have a problem in my neighborhood. There's somebody that has a loud chicken, or this person is parking on the street, or you know, maybe the cops keep flying the helicopter over my house, or you know, there's the SWAT team's always in my neighborhood, or something, you know what I mean? Something. Is that what you mean? Like giving them more of a voice, actually listening to them, or actually including them somehow by creating a board or committee or
including them somehow. I mean, it would be awesome to have every neighborhood involved in the city's decision making in sort of I don't want to say like a neighborhood boss or neighborhood leader, but every neighborhood should have like some sort of setup where it's like, okay, that neighborhood reports out on these problems. And, you know, it's funny you mentioned all four of those problems. Like I could have said personally myself, because, you know, in my neighborhood, there is a loud chicken. Unfortunately, it's mine. And then I park on the street and the helicopter's always over my house. And, you know, if I were to go down and complain about any of those things, to be real, the council person, or probably not them, their assistant would probably write back and say, oh, this is something we're going to look into. We'll be back with you. And then you might get a call back about it, but what are they actually going to say to you about that, you know? And so I guess when I talk about more power, I think people, and this is not only do they have the right to come and say, I want to do this with my neighborhood, or I want to do this with my small business, but it's actually their responsibility also. So if somebody is saying, hey, I want to add a patio on my small business, it's not my right as a city to say, no, you cannot. Yes, we have zoning rules and we have codes and whatever that, you know, try to keep property values up and keep things looking nice. But at the same time, people, if they truly are sovereign and free, which we've talked about a little bit, and we know the varying degrees of that, but if they truly have some freedom, they should be able to say, my business is going to be better if I have a patio and I'll service more people. And here's the reason why. And the city should be like, all right, let me figure out how that can happen.
How we can accommodate you instead of charging you out the butthole for permits and all kinds of stupid shit that we just want to benefit off of. So somebody said the question, can you pardon Direct D? And I want to touch on that subject because I know there's going to be a lot of people that think that, you know, that I'm somehow going to benefit from you being mayor, but I don't quite think that they understand how the structure of the city works and the city charter. So, I mean, if you want to say it in your own words, like there is not going to be no pardoning of, I'm still going to have to deal with my fucking cases. Like there is not going to be no benefit to me whatsoever if you become mayor. I want to make that very clear. You can't do anything.
Nope. And you know, in the weak mayor system that most Arizona, I think all cities in Arizona have the weak mayor system. If there are other options, I'm still looking for which ones have a different system. But you're really, you know, as the mayor and council, you're elected by the people to have listen to what's happening in the neighborhoods, and then take that information and then go give direction to the city manager, who will then execute on whatever that's supposed to be. And hire people in the city. The mayor and council hire 5 people. It's a city clerk, the city auditor, the city attorney, the city manager, and the oh god, I forget the last one. I don't remember it right now, but it'll probably come to me in a minute. But that's pretty much your job, other than collecting information from people and then setting agendas.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear because there's going to be people that, for some reason, think that I'm going to benefit, which is funny. It would be nice, but it's not realistic, folks.
I think
no,
also
I'm
to your point, also is you know, a mayor is way different than a president or a governor.
oh yeah,
The state still has all the rights. A president can pardon somebody. A mayor cannot pardon anybody. What they
the
can
governor
do,
can.
though, yeah, the governor could. But what they can do is the next time that something like that happens, to prevent something like that from happening, they can say, all right, we are no longer going to enforce that ordinance that now puts somebody in that position prior to that, or, you know, just get rid of it or make a better version of it.
That brings up a good question for me. So I'm pretty familiar with Mesa City ordinances. Now, let's say that I came to a city council meeting and I brought up the one that they passed for me. Let's just use that as an example. So, disobeying a police officer. Essentially, Mesa passed an ordinance where they could arrest me before I had warrants, of course, if I didn't back up from a traffic stop. And if I came to the city council and I laid out how the structure of this city code doesn't follow what the legislature passed for the state, and how it's overbroad and arbitrary and unconstitutional, would you say, oh, okay, we'll look into it? Or would you actively investigate what I was talking about and then seek to introduce, your own city legislation to change the code or rewrite it?
Right. So I think it's important to recognize that the state, once again, gives the rights to cities to make decisions, right? So the state has the ultimate say in most things. That's why when you see a lot of the housing laws and zoning code fights at the state right now, and the cities and the League of Cities and Towns are going crazy over this because they're like, no, we must fight for our local control and you can't tell us what to do. That is just the proof that the state has the full control. That being said, they allow cities to make a rule, right, or an ordinance, which isn't a law, it's an ordinance and a city rule. So yeah, I would say that we should look into a lot of those that are non-functional or so broad that I think it should be very difficult for an officer to just go in and say, hey, you're disobeying me, I'm going to get you or fine you or arrest you. Because there should be like pretty clear-cut reasons why somebody's doing something and the ability to explain why, according to what is law.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. So, and part of that goes along with that is Mesa has a trespass enforcement program, and the way that it's worded on the paperwork that these business owners sign, the business owners are giving up their rights to their private property and control the people that are on it. Essentially, what the trespass enforcement program in Mesa says is that the business owner is giving the police permission to trespass anybody from their business for any reason. And that's the wording of it. And what I would personally like to see change is either the complete abolishment of this trespass enforcement program, because I don't know if you know or anybody else knows, but I believe it's 68% of arrests in Mesa are for trespassing. So it would fix a lot of issues and give power back to the landowners that own these businesses and are funding the city in Mesa, because a lot of them are scared of the police. You know this, I know it. A lot of them just let the cops roam on their business and do whatever they want because they believe that there's going to be retaliation, and they're right to believe that. So I think the first step in getting trust back with the businesses is showing them that you mean business by taking that element of control that the police have taken from them through manipulation with this piece of paper, and give it back to the business owners, so the cops can't just arbitrarily show up and trespass somebody that looks homeless because they think that they're not there to do business or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, not only that, I think the idea needs to shift a little bit about us, people living in a community, right? I was at Bean Chain Coffee the other day, doing a live stream, and unsheltered, unhoused person came in and he asked, hey, can I have a sandwich? Can I have water? Can I use the bathroom? And can you call me a ride? And the owner there, David, could have easily said, you know what, get out of here. I'm going to call the cops. You know, he could have easily said that. And what he did is he said, look, I'm going to give you this cup of water. We already had closed the kitchen, so there's no sandwiches. I'll give you like what we have here. It's like, you know, at the end of the day, like a cookie or something like that. And let me figure out how I can help you get a ride. And the guy was in and out within 15 minutes, no problems, no hassle. He wasn't fighting anybody, and no officers had to show up and waste city resources, you know, to start, you know, arresting somebody for being somewhere and asking for something. So I think the attitude also has to change a little bit. Now, that being said, I remember when I worked at CVS on Dobson and Southern for a long time, and there was a lot of times that sometimes people did need to be trespassed because they weren't going to ever leave nicely or peacefully. You know, there was just sometimes that had to, you know, and like I think you had mentioned earlier too that, you know, policing is a necessary thing. We just have to find out how to make it more empowering, not so enforceable, or I mean, not so like overbearing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, agree on that too. I mean, but a lot of that comes once again with a person's responsibility as a business owner to actually understand what's happening and what they're doing.
Right. I agree. I totally agree. I think that there are instances where people need to be trespassed. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not delusional. Like, oh yeah, let's just camp out on the, you know, no. But it's not being done that way. You know what I mean? It's not being. It's just like, oh, we don't like that you're over there and you look different than us, so you're trespassing. You got to leave.
Well, I mean, to your point too, I went to a police meeting about the Fiesta district. It was the Fiesta area one, and they were trying to roll out a plan where you give the police the codes to your rings and all your different, you know, business cameras, so they can use it to kind of link it together to start, you know, in their mind, like preventing crime, right? But in my personal opinion of that, I thought that was just another way of giving it more of your rights to, you know, and somebody else's rights, really. Because I mean, my first question was, how many times have you used a camera to prevent a violent crime? And the answer was, well, we saw, you know, that we saw the guy who stabbed that guy and it was one of the parks, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but the guy still got stabbed, right? So the camera didn't prevent it, and maybe it made people move away from that camera so they aren't seeing, but it's not preventing the crime, right?
You know what I would say in response to that to the police? You want access to everybody's cameras, but when we put in a records request, we can't get body camera footage for years from you. So until you're willing to just cough up your body camera footage within a week, you don't get access to nothing. I mean,
Right.
rights and all this other shit aside, let's just play on fair ground here. Give me access to your footage, we'll give you access to ours. But you know that's never going to happen. And I know that's another thing that you're pushing on is more transparency with public data, public records,
and a timely response. I have a personal experience with that, where I went and I requested a officer's body cam, or a couple officers' body cams from a certain incident, and they basically said, yeah, that's just going to take a long time. And where I said, well, what do you mean? Like, what does it mean, like a long time? You know, because we had there was a court date coming up for that specific body cam, and they're like, yeah, it's probably going to take like maybe a year or so to get this all together, because it takes all this time and we have to edit it and we have to go through it. And I'm just like, well, why do you got to edit it? Can't you just be like, boop, we got it from that camera, boop, here it is, you know? Oh shoot, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Sorry,
as a video editor. Go ahead. When you're running for the mayor of Mesa, important phone calls. Cannot get.
Sorry about that. No, it's not a phone call. My son installed a. We don't have a doorbell, so he put one in, and now he decided he thought it was a good idea to hit it like 7 times.
Hell yeah, I love kids. Life wouldn't be as interesting without children. I can
Nope.
definitely say that.
And they've taught me a whole lot about patience and I mean, even more about rights, right? Because you think your kids are asking all the time, can I do this? Can I do that? And you're like, shoot, just do it. You don't need my permission. But then you're like, wait, you do need my permission.
Yeah, right. Right. I agree with you. What I was saying is about the body camera footage, as an editor, I know that it doesn't take as long as they're claiming it does. And if they have one person editing all there's a problem. That's something else that, like, when you get elected as mayor, I want to personally help you with, is show you what the laws are, Title 39 around public records, and that the police department is responsible for maintaining an orderly, flow of their work and getting records out when they're requested in a timely manner. And if they're not, it's a fucking misdemeanor. That's what I want to push right there. So these people are just they're getting tax dollars to not do their job correctly, and the repercussions in our state law is a misdemeanor for not doing their job correctly. Nobody seems to care about that. So I mean, we have so many problems. In Colorado, you can get body camera footage in 2 weeks maximum. In other states, it comes in 5 days. I mean, in Florida has the sunshine law, where you can get it within a week or a month, maybe a month. I mean, it's quick. But Arizona, years.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, that's, what another point to that is, like, why aren't we looking at best practices of other states? I mean, we have the same things happening. So why wouldn't we be like, all right, look, they're doing it. They're getting out in a week. What do they have? 2 editors instead of 1? Is that what they're doing? That's different. You know what I mean? What's the difference here?
Well, and another thing I've noticed, and Mesa doesn't do this, but like places like Gilbert, they'll blur the entire body cam, or Mesa will send you little chunks. They'll send you a 3-minute segment, a 10-minute segment, and they're not supposed to do that. That's tampering with evidence. You're tampering with a public record. You're not supposed to do any alterations to it whatsoever, except for covering up personal identifying information of victims or witnesses or any of that shit, like their ID or maybe their face or their license plate. Those are the only things that can be redacted. But it seems that the police department thinks they can just chop your shit up and send it to you, and that's okay. And Mesa does that. I've got Mesa using body camera footage that was altered, so the screen blown up and you couldn't even see the axon stamp in the corner anymore, used in a criminal case to convict a man and put him in prison for 10 years. That's the Mesa. That's a good transition subject right there. Is a lot of people.
What happened?
Whoopsie daisy! I clicked the wrong button.
So a lot of people are what?
A lot of people are wondering and are aware that there is a problem in the judiciary in Mesa, and are going to want to know, what your plan is to do something about it, because not only me, there are many people that are going through bullshit cases in Mesa. The prosecutors are just pushing them through. The judges aren't doing their jobs the way that they're supposed to, stuff like that. So, I mean, I know there's not much that you technically can do. I know you can be the voice for change where there wasn't one before. So, I mean,
that, and the other one I forgot is you hire the chief magistrate also. And so that's
right.
the 5th I was talking about. My wife and I were talking this morning about this because I was telling her I was coming on with you. She's like, oh, that's awesome. She's like, it's so exciting that you're going on with Direct D. And then we were talking about how she had gotten a ticket once. And because of the way the judiciary is and the way that policing is, she was challenging it because she's like, he said that I made a left turn, but I made a right turn. So how is that even correct? And it was actually wrong, the things that had happened. And so she went to challenge it, and the judge had just said, well, I mean, that's what the officer said, so that's what it is. So, you know what I mean? So what essentially is happening is that the minute the officer signs off on that ticket, it's almost like your judge, your jury, like, why did you even, your due process is actually not a due process, right? I mean, you might have even experienced that, because the minute the officer says it, who are they going to believe? Like you, who's coming and saying, this is what happened, that's what happened, and here's all my evidence, whatever. They're going to be like, nah, like, look, we deal with this officer all the time. This is what he said. Like, we're going to believe it, And that's a very difficult way of back to your point of trust, right? The people have no trust in a system that doesn't offer them options or a way to be empowered.
Right. Right. And then, yeah, so we know there's problems in the judicial. We know there's problems in the police department. Something that me and you were talking about is it's like a citizen review board that you want to introduce, but that requires something.
Yeah, charter change. Yep. So I would love, so they actually have a citizen review board, but they don't have any disciplinary power right now. So they can make recommendations and they can say things, but they have limited access to stuff. It's kind of the same, right? It's the same as you going down and asking for some body cam footage and like, yeah, go ahead. We'll give it to you in a while. And when you get it, you're like, yo, I want to make some recommendations. And they're gonna be like, yeah, that sounds great. We'll file that for you. You know, that's kind of how the current one works. And so I think that needs to change, and they need to make it so that it actually has disciplinary power and some power to actually make recommendations that might stick to things. Because if something's going on with a complaint on an officer for a use of force, for example, right? And then nobody checks it out, we end up having, you know, what just happened where someone's shot in the face, right? Because that person basically got in trouble lightly, slap on the hand. Okay, I'll just move police departments, went somewhere else. No one checked any of this out. And next thing you know, somebody's dead. And how many times did that happen before that nobody just knows about because there was no body cam on her or something like that, you know?
That's happened a lot in Mesa. I mean, I'm very familiar with some of Mesa's killer cops, and some of them are laterals from other departments. There are some shady characters roaming around the streets of Mesa, terrorizing its citizens that don't even live in the city. That's something that always fucking bothered me. Is being a Mesa resident, I have these cops that come in and police my city and tell me what the fuck to do, and I live here and you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always think the same of top ranking city officials. Like, I think if you are a top ranking city official and you don't live in the city, that's a problem.
Hell yeah, that's a problem. What? Are there city officials that don't live in the city right now?
Oh yeah, one that just retired was a deputy city manager, which is one of the highest ranking that lived in Scottsdale.
Yeah, that's wild. Somebody with no interest, no standing in the community, like a police officer, is going to come in and just dictate what happens in the city is wild to me.
Yeah,
wild. Like letting some outsider, you know, what the.
Well, I mean, the city also is one of the highest employers, the largest employers in the city. So, I mean, maybe, you know, not everyone will be able to be from Mesa, but if you're a high-ranking official, you should probably have some very big stake in your city being, you know, important and good and functioning and servicing people.
Something that I would personally like to see happen is when you become mayor, introducing a new citywide policy where it's mandatory constitutional training, and not just for the police, but for city workers at city hall, people, you know, maybe at post offices in the city boundary, any kind of government employee that works in the city of Mesa, it should be required that they have constitutional training. So if a First Amendment auditor goes into a post office or the city hall or a probation office or a court or something, like, they're not looking like idiots online because they don't know what's going on and they don't understand people's rights. I think it's super embarrassing when a city is blasted online for its city employees not understanding any constitutional rights whatsoever. I mean, it looks so bad on the city when there's plenty of videos. You can walk into any building in Mesa and get your rights violated and create a lawsuit if that's what you were looking for, which is dangerous for the city and the taxpayers.
Yeah, well, not only that, like, you know, I think the folks don't understand that the people who are testing something like this, although it seems like, oh, you're using resources and time of the city and you're, you know, causing a commotion, they don't understand that what you're doing is actually defending one of the rights that they are going to want to have one day. They just don't know it yet, you know? Yep. And so I think it goes back to that whole idea what do we hear? I think we say if you're not doing anything wrong, then you shouldn't have to worry about answering questions or being on camera, whatever. I think it goes both ways, right? And not only that, so I actually was talking this yesterday. Also, it would be great if how like banks have like their employees or Intel, they say, 4 times a year you have a day that we pay you, but you're gonna go volunteer for that day, right? So I feel that every single city worker should have to go door to door knocking for at least one day a year and just talking to folks in neighborhoods, but make it quarterly, really. And maybe that constitutional training is part of that. And maybe, Intel does mental health periods too, because I mean, I'm sure there's, especially officers, fire, EMS, whatever, you probably definitely need some sort of mental health day or some kind of access to something better than just go back to work.
What would be better than a mental health day is somehow creating a policy to let government employees smoke weed. You want to have a lot more chill and comfortable and cool government employees. If they weren't so uptight and popping pills and drowning themselves in alcohol and just smoking a little bit of weed, I think that might change just a little bit. A lot of people are less to do erratic things, be violent, do things that are angry when they've got the magical THC molecule floating around in their body.
Yep. I mean, the city doesn't seem to care when you're like drinking on the weekend or whatever. So it should be one of those things. It's your time, your thing.
I mean, it's legal in the state. So that would be something that I would highly recommend for uptight government officials is smoke a little bit of pot. It'll change your perception and some shit.
I don't know if the city will like recommend that, but I'm sure they could just say, look, you do what you want on your own time and we're not going to bug you on that stuff.
We won't fire you, because that's what a lot of people are worried about. Those potential UAs, especially in the police department. They don't want to come up dirty. They don't want to lose their job. I mean, a lot of them smoke weed anyway. They know when their UAs are coming, but if it was something that wasn't stigmatized, I think it could actually help.
I think a lot of folks are doing a lot more than they say they are on the weekends, and just hoping they don't get that call.
Oh, fuck yeah. Everybody's human. We all shit in the shower, right?
Sinks, whatever else.
What's a lot of people asking about qualified immunity. Now, I know as a mayor, that has nothing to do with you, but what's your opinion
on it? Well, I mean, hopefully the officer won't do something that ruins his qualified immunity.
Well, technically, you have qualified immunity too when you become mayor.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. That's interesting.
Government official.
There's a lot I got to learn about that. So the thing is with mayors, though, you're so low on the totem pole, and people still treat you like garbage that I always feel like it's not truly like an elected form unless it's like state and up, But I guess maybe it is.
The state can definitely change it. The state can introduce legislation on the state level to make qualified immunity not an excuse in a state level court case. Like they can't do anything in the federal courts, but the state can definitely introduce something to change the way police are held accountable by eliminating their state level qualified immunity.
Yeah, I mean, there was some congressperson that used to like go to like Circle K's and just grab a bunch of stuff and leave all the time and be like, no, I'm on my way to doing the job, so this is what I need to do, right? And it's not here. I think it was like in Washington D.C. or something. Like there was some guy that would do that, and it was under that idea that if I'm on duty, I'm immune from that crime, right? I don't think the mayor actually has that ability. I think that qualified immunity is way less for a mayor, but yeah, I mean,
you definitely firefighters have qualified immunity. Okay. EMT medical personnel have qualified immunity because if they make a mistake while they're employed by the government, they have to have some kind of backing, and everybody has prosecutors, judges. If you are a government employee and then you sign the oath of office that you have to sign when you get sworn in, the ARS, I forget what it is, but I swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Arizona Constitution, follow all the laws of Arizona, and exercise the duties of my job, blah, 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 blah. So help me. Here's my signature. So that grants you a certain level of immunity with the state for mistakes that you might make. I think that's why people are asking that, because qualified immunity is a big deal. I don't think it's the whole deal, but it's a big deal, and it's more of a big deal for the police. I don't really think it has anything. I mean, it does, but
I think though it's also, you know, back to that whole idea of like if there is a use of force, or if there or somebody's getting killed, or anything that's even, you know, complained about, I think that's where that citizens advisory board comes in, and you have to look that up, and then you have to make decisions on do you lose that qualified immunity in that case because that actually was a crime and a misuse of power, or was he truly doing a good job and that's what had to happen at that time because there was no other option or something, you know?
right, yeah, that's pretty standard.
I mean, part of that too is, you know, the idea of de-escalation. I don't know if this is a good idea. This is just something I had thought yesterday, but you know, what if there was the idea that like, if you are like a hothead type of officer, and you've had complaints, what if the idea is like, all right, well, cool, you can still be a cop and you're on monitor now, but now you don't get a hold of weapon while you're out there for like a year. Because at that point you're like going out and saying, hey, stop. And the people are, you know, you're really kind of using a lot more of your instincts to like negotiate with somebody, you know, like, because you don't want a hothead that might shoot somebody. So if somebody's escalating all the time and you know it, then maybe that's a situation, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky situation with the police, because they investigate themselves, and I mean, you as the mayor, you wouldn't even normally know about any complaints that are put in against the police department. It goes to the command staff and the chief, and then the either the city attorney or the police in-house attorney are the ones that review the complaints, and the mayor usually never even hears about it. And I think that's a problem, because you have constituents that voted for you complaining about how the city is policing them, and those complaints aren't reaching you.
Right, exactly. Well, not only that, you know, one of the main roles of a city is to take care of its citizens. So one of the largest bills in a city is its safety, public safety, and past public safety obligations. So that seems to be something you should, if it's one of the highest things you're paying for, it should be something that we're paying very close attention to.
Yeah. The budget for the police is astronomical, especially in Mesa.
It's almost 2/3 of the budget of every city, at least, is the budget for police.
You know what I want to know is I want a percentage of the budget that is specifically spent to fly that fucking helicopter around all night and look for truant teens and direct D.
And direct D. Well, yeah, fly far away now that you're living in another state, right?
Yeah, basically. They wouldn't be able to come and fly over here. I mean, they could, but they wouldn't. Yeah, there's a lot of that's another thing that would be something to talk about, is all the extra expenditures that the city is throwing money at for absolutely no reason right now, that could be spent to enrich the lives or better the lives of the citizens, instead of buying a new tank, instead of you know, pumping tens of thousands of gallons of fuel into the helicopter to fly around for no reason.
Not to that point. I mean, I ran a small business technical assistance program where we helped roughly probably 300 small businesses a year to start, you know, building themselves up to get access to capital and buy their property, which is like the American dream, right? You want to buy a property, you want to build up that property in your business, and then have something for your kids, right? That's kind of the dream. And that whole program probably costs around $300,000 a year to help a couple hundred businesses. You know, I wonder what that tank actually costs, you know, because in 1 year, the operation of it, the upkeep on it, what is it, you know? And
A lot.
If people have a better income and a little more personal wealth, I mean, it's a direct correlation to less crime, right? So then you wouldn't need a tank anymore, probably, until those crazy things happen. But that's what my question was, what were they planning for when they bought that tank? And we talked about that earlier, but what was the thought process, you know?
It's just a overreaction to everything. Oh, Phoenix is seeing an uptake in crime, so Mesa needs a tank because we have too many homeless. Or, we've got all kinds of illegals flooding the border. So for some reason, Mesa thinks they're all going to come to that city. I don't know. They're just, the tank is overreacting. How many serious incidents have happened in the last 20 years in Mesa where they've needed a fucking tank?
I
Let's
think
be
there was
realistic.
the one that I can think of that was a pretty serious incident was where that guy was in the hotel in West Mesa, shot a few people, took a car, drove down the street, shot a few more people, went down, barricaded himself in some apartment, and then shot some people. I mean,
Oh,
in
shit.
that case, maybe they take that tank and like drive through the wall and get him, but that's one in many years, right?
When did that happen?
That was in 2000. I want to say it was like 17, 18 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And I remember when I was talking to the police after that, they were saying that it had taken almost the whole force. So if there was another call on the other side of the city, that would have been like, they wouldn't be able to help it, because of that situation.
Damn. And it's mind-blowing that they put that same amount of police force effort into stalking me. I know you've heard cops make little comments and quips about, how much time and effort we put into the, why are you talking to him?
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, the city puts a lot of time and effort into a lot of things that I don't quite understand sometimes. And not only that, it's kind of people's job scope. If you're asking for a bunch of FOIA stuff, it might be annoying, but another person someday is going to want to ask for a bunch of stuff in a FOIA, and they're going to want that right too. So even if you are annoying them, it's still your rights, right? So the annoying piece is an emotion; it's not a law, and so it's kind of, that sucks. And I get it. People are annoying sometimes, but if it's the job, it's the job.
Yep. I mean, there's been a lot of resources used to just stalk me. My complaints get unanswered whenever I complain to the police department or the city council. I've been to city council. Um, I've spoken directly to the mayor, and then there's I think it's Mark Freeman, who's currently on the city council of Mesa right now, that's also running. And anybody that's thinking about voting, that should be the last person that you think about voting for. And let me tell you why, real quick. Because Mark Freeman's been sitting on the city council the entire time that I've been growing this Direct D channel in Mesa, recording the Mesa Police Department and documenting government officials in Mesa. And I've brought complaints directly to him in city council. I've sent emails to him, to the mayor. I've sent all kinds of complaints to the police department. And you know what they did? Nothing. They just ignored me. And that's part of the reason why I have such a strong belief in supporting Ryan, because I don't believe that people are going to get ignored the way I've been ignored. I mean, what am I, fucking chop suey? I lived in the city. I owned a business in the city. I paid taxes in the city. I bought my stuff. So I was a resident of the city, but being treated as if I was some criminal outlaw that was doing something illegal. And I honestly feel like that something like that will change with you, as opposed to all the dinosaurs and old guard that's currently running behind you.
Well, that and they feel, one of the major differences you'll get with me is, even if I don't like you or I think that you're annoying, if it is the job to talk to you, I will do it. There was a lady, I specifically remember her, that she would call in and complain all the time and tell me how much of a POS I am and all this kind of stuff like that. I still went over to her house and I'm like, look, like, I get it. You don't like me, whatever, but let's see what your issue is so we can, figure this out, because obviously you have an issue and you're not going to stop calling. So the easiest way for me to fix this is to help me fix your issue, And so, we stopped it, the issue. Interestingly enough, she moved to Phoenix later, but, somebody else's problem now. But I felt good that I went and talked to her anyways. Not only that, there's a lot of people that, aren't going to like me. And so, I can't stop that, but the point is, if you're a public official, it's your job,
Yeah.
It's not about like.
Mitigating issues is a big deal, because The city and the police department didn't mitigate the issue with me, and now look what's happened. My channel has 300,000 subscribers almost. I'm completely adverse to that police department. Unless they change some shit, there's no way I'm going to talk good about them. So they could have, they could have went a different way when I started saying, when the wheel started squeaking, there should have been some grease added to it. You know what I mean? They just let it keep squeaking until now it's screeching. So
Yep. Well, and the thing is, it's almost like there was another guy too. I remember too. He was kind of a tweaker, and he would bug me, and I'm like, hey man, look, why don't you just come down to the city, and I'm gonna just show you how things work a little bit. I invited him up to the 7th floor, and he was like taking pictures. He couldn't believe it. I can't believe I'm up here, and I'm like, it's nothing special, dude. It's like these are offices, these are people doing things. When you say this is what happens. This is who takes care of it, whatever. And he felt so good because he just understood a little more what was happening. I mean, most people, that's the whole thing, is they just don't understand it. And then the city workers, who I think we have a lot of good city workers, but we have people that are stifling their ability to actually do the work that they would rather do. Chris Brady, the city manager, he's done a lot of things. He's been with the city for 19 years. Great. Thank you for your service, but time to go, right? It's time to go.
yes.
And have somebody who's really more about empowering and inviting the inventiveness and ingenuity of people, because the future is only getting harder so far. It's not getting easier. And everyone has less money, so that's going to include cities, because the state's taking more money now with that whole TPT thing that they're doing. So we got to get creative.
Yeah. People definitely want to be heard. That's what somebody in the comments said. People just want to be heard sometimes. And I agree with you on getting rid of Chris Brady. Out of anybody that's currently on the city council, other than John, obviously, he's a loser, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't like the guy. He couldn't even look me in the eyes when we were at a city council meeting and I was talking directly to him. That's how I feel about that man. Is if you can't look me in the eyes when I'm talking to you, then you got something to hide or there's something wrong. But Chris Brady is definitely one of the ones that needs to go. He has done absolutely nothing for the citizens. The only thing that he's done there is enrich the government and the people around him and hide from problems when they're brought to him. I know ABC 15 went into a city council meeting to ask Chris some questions, and he literally ran out of the meeting so he could avoid talking to the cameras. It was so pathetic, it's not even funny. That's one of our leaders of our city. What the fuck?
Well, that's definitely one of the problems, is that the city thinks of itself as like a corporation, right? And when people say, when I protect the city, they're truly looking out for like the city as an organization, not the city as its people. And so like my thinking is like, okay, well, if we're thinking of it as a business that we're running, that's the wrong way to think of it, because it's funded by taxpayers. Like everyone's paying for it, it's not like some money we earned or something, from somewhere. It's something we got from people, and so that's the city. The people are the city. So that's where all of the good outcomes should end up.
The city is absolutely it is a corporation, and if you become mayor, you're going to be the CEO. And and it is ran like a business instead of like a community thing. And you can see that in the little details. Like if you go to City Hall in Mesa right now, there's a sign before you go up the stairs, before you go into the bathroom area, that says stop. All customers must check in at the front desk. All customers. It's City Hall, not
Right.
visitors. It said customers on there.
That's interesting, right? I didn't see it say customers, but I'll go look and I'll take a picture next time. But that's definitely bad wording. And all of this goes back to the idea of trust, right? And I can't remember what I was talking with somebody, but we're talking about building at the speed of trust. And trust can take a very, very long time to build, and it can be a second to lose, right? And that,
Yep.
like with you, you could easily be helping build trust by the judiciary and Mesa being like, you know what, we're gonna help you figure out your stuff. We don't like you, but we know it's your right, so we're gonna help you figure it out. And then you would say, well, they didn't like me, but at least they helped me figure it out, And then we
Well,
wouldn't have a problem.
I've never been given an opportunity to glorify anybody like that, because they just don't do that kind of shit.
Yeah.
They don't. Instead of constantly hounding people, like I could be pointing out, like, hey, look, they helped me with this. They didn't do this when they you know what I mean? But it doesn't
Mhm.
work like that. It just never works like that. They don't have most of the government does not have its people in their mind when they're doing things.
Right. Right.
They don't like most people will say you only care about us when you want our vote, and then when you're in office, then you forget.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that too, because every day for the last 10 plus years, I've been doing something in like the neighborhoods. And so I'm constantly facing people who have complaints and thoughts about things. And so for me, it's like, I don't have, if I did something crazy or something people didn't like, I would hear it immediately from people, you know? And so I don't have the opportunity to hide, for me anyways, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's not the same for the current leadership structure. They absolutely are sticking their head in the sand anytime an issue gets brought up, and they're just going along with what other city employees are saying instead of listening to the people that are bringing them issues.
In my experience too, a lot of the city workers and not the executive staff, but the people kind of in the lower levels, they were excellent at bringing up issues. They just stop at a certain point because from a business standpoint, it's not something that they wanted to address or care about, right?
Right. 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 Just like from a business standpoint, when the city gets sued, it's not a matter of, well, did they do something wrong? It's a matter of, is it going to cost us more to fight this case, or is it going to cost us more just to pay him out and shut him up?
That's exactly right.
So I think we'll do this for about 9 more minutes. Anybody in the chat have some questions for Ryan that you want asked? Ryan, if you see any questions, feel free to answer them. You do have some Mesa residents in here currently watching. And if you are living in Mesa and you subscribe to my channel and you're not voting for this guy, I want you to go play in traffic. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That's dangerous. But you really need to you really need to fucking vote for this dude. I mean, for those of you watching my channel, you know what problems we have in Mesa. I mean, I grew up in Mesa. My first police encounter ever in my entire life was the Mesa Police Department. I mean, I've spent at least 20 years of my 35 years on this planet in Mesa, Arizona. And you have an opportunity to fucking do something about what's happening in your city. So stop sitting on your ass. The day's not over. I mean, you might have 5 more minutes or maybe an hour and 5 more minutes to go cast your fucking ballot for Ryan today. So go do it today. If you can't make it today, make sure you're there on the 30th to cast it at the primary and show your support for somebody that actually gives a fuck about your city, because it's not the other people that are running. It's Ryan.
Yeah, and if you need to find your local voting places, I think they're actually open tonight a little bit later for people that need to do it. But it's, if you go to winkleformayor.com, I have a bunch of tabs on there. One of them is like your voting locations. So if you don't know it today, you can also go on the 30th. They'll be also there, so you can check it out. I've actually worked pretty hard to inform, you know, people in the city often aren't part of a lot of the political things that are happening. So they don't even know what's happening a lot of times. So we've done a lot of informational pieces around how do you even vote? How do you register? If I'm a third party, will I get a ballot? Like all these different things about how you can even participate, because probably a good, 4/5 of the city doesn't have a say in the primary unless you take, some pretty specific actions to even get a ballot or to go do something about it.
Okay, so yeah, that would be definitely some important information as how do people cast their vote, because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, well, that sounds good, but I don't know where to go. What's the address? None of
Yeah.
that shit. So when I make some posts about this in the next couple of days, I'll be sure to add the address and all of your information for your campaign.
Yeah, it's all on
I
there in
got
the links.
Look at that. AZ Mesa Town Benny says, I got 6 generations with me and we're all going down to vote. Fuck yeah, dude. That's what's up. And any friends that you have that you could possibly convince to also make a change in their city, if you can convince one other person, then you're shooting for the stars, because I mean, something has to change. Something has to change. Something has to
Yeah,
change, folks.
just to talk about how important, Benny, your vote is and your family's vote is. There will probably be somewhere in between 30 to 50,000 votes in this race. There's 5 candidates, and 2 of them will get the majority of those votes. So one vote could absolutely make a total difference in this primary race, because 2 of the 5 go on to the general. Or if I have 50% of the vote plus 1, I would win straight out, which would be the ultimate. And that would be a massive finger in the face, I think, to the people that are trying to control things.
Yeah, you were the one out of everybody that they don't want to become Mesa, the mayor of Mesa. So for those of you watching, it's very important for you to understand that the powers that be right now, currently, and the people that are running do not want Ryan to become mayor of Mesa. So that's why it's even more important. If somebody that's currently running the city into a shithole when it comes to the citizens doesn't want you to vote for somebody, then I should tell you something. If you have a YouTube channel in Arizona, if you have a social media account in Arizona, especially in Mesa, where you have people from Mesa watching, I would highly encourage you and appreciate it if you would share, this live stream. You would share Ryan's campaign information on your social media. I mean, social media is the way of the world right now, and the more people that doesn't matter if you've got 5 followers or 50,000, just one vote, just like he said, could be the difference. 2 votes could be the difference. So if
the county's attorney's race of last time it went was won by, I think, 211 votes. So for the whole entire county, that is who got the county attorneys. This is how important it is for you to vote in these county and city races.
Yeah, I know I'm so opposed to voting in general, but when it comes to local, with my own state, the cities that I'm affiliated with, that's when things change for me. That's when I'll advocate for people. That's when, if I see somebody that I think has the right mindset to be a leader, and not fucking run the office into the ground or abuse the citizens that they're charged with, taking care of, essentially, then I'll throw my backing behind him. But you're the only person so far that I've been able to say that about, which is sad, dude. And this is Arizona.
Yeah. I appreciate it, though. And that's one of the goals too. Once mayor, I would like to run trainings on how to even run, because I want to see everybody trying. You should run for at least once in your life, everybody, because you learn a lot about how cities work, how a position works, how actually easy it is to be a person that can change things for a lot of people's lives if you just put a little effort into it.
I agree. Freddie the Fly says he's voting for Ryan.
Thanks, brother.
Really do appreciate you guys. It's important. I know I keep saying it, but I'm not just some fucking YouTuber that's trying to promote some random dude. And like, I grew up in Mesa. My channel, this channel that you're watching right now, this plaque right here, I got from the Mesa Police Department. Thank you, Mesa PD. They helped me get this. So it's important that I do whatever possible little tiny thing that I can to affect what's happening in that city, because I have a vested interest in there. I got a lot of friends in Mesa. I've got a lot of support. There's a lot of people that live in that city that I care about, and especially the homeless population. I've been watching the government step on them all in Mesa specifically for years, and it's fucking sickening, dude. Like, I hate people that will treat other people less than them because they have a drug problem, because they have and they're homeless, or they have some kind of mental disorder, or maybe they're just not sociable. You know what I mean? They do not treat those people like they treat me and you. And that fucking drives nails under my skin like you wouldn't believe, because I don't agree with that. Your money and your housing, none of that shit means anything when it comes to you as a human being. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, that idea of thinking of someone as a fellow human, or actually a fellow resident. I always try to refer to, our homeless friends as they're Mesa residents. As long as they're sitting here on this earth, it's a Mesa resident. So, we got to treat them like one.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be problems, but you don't lump the whole group as having the same problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
that's
I cruise
stereotyping.
around a lot of neighborhoods, and you just kind of see how each neighborhood is so different.
Oh
And
yeah.
that would be like me taking like Lehigh or something, like, you know what, we don't like those Lehigh types. Like, let's get rid of them. You know, that doesn't work.
I lived over by Falcon Field off of Greenway for a while in a really nice neighborhood. And then I moved to Gilbert in Maine and lived behind the 7-Eleven in some condominium complexes and experienced a completely fucking different side of Mesa. Completely. The cops don't even come over to Greenfield. If they do, I never saw them. They were always at the 7-Eleven behind my house, though.
Yeah, I remember. I know that. I know exactly where that is.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think this was a good chat. Do you have any subjects that I might have missed on that you're thinking about that you would think would be important for people to know and understand before voting for you?
You know, I think there's a lot of different things that are happening. I would just say go to any of my social medias or winkleformayor.com. And I always give out my phone number, 602-741-6465. It's the same number I've had since 1997. It's my personal phone number. I tell everyone, call it, text it. Texting's a little easier because then I can look, if I don't know something about what you're texting about, I can look it up and see what we can do about it. There was a gentleman that asked, you know, why don't we do bulk pickup anymore, bulk trash? I'm like, well, Mesa stopped that a number of years ago. And now you have to just request as like a group of people in your neighborhood to get one dropped off. So it's just a different system now, but I had to go look up what the deal was. So yeah, any questions, you can put my number down there too, you know, just give it out. Because
Okay.
that's kind of, as the mayor, I want to maintain that relationship. I don't mind if someone's like, hey, I'm going to text this jerk and see what he's going to say about this. That's fine.
Hey, that's on a different level right there because I can't just text a mayor in Arizona right now. There's a few that I can send messages to, like on X or Facebook, that who knows if they're going to see it or if even they read it. But to have that kind of openness is something that people should recognize. How many people in the government can you text right now and get answers from? And a lot of them are going to say, "Oh, well, you're going to change your number, and that's not going to be the same when you're mayor." Is are you going to change your number?
No, I've had the same one since '97, so I'm not changing it.
So a direct line to the mayor for everybody in Mesa, essentially, that has a problem is something that's completely different than I've ever seen with any political official ever. I, me being normal citizen, not knowing any of them, I can't just look up their phone number and text them. I don't think.
What I have done in the past is that, let's say someone has texted me with an issue. Sometimes I'll say, look, I need you to rewrite this and send it through the like mayor@mesaaz.gov, because then it puts it in like a timeline, because it's
It's an official portal.
yeah, it's an official portal. So usually but it's good to get clarity first, so to help somebody figure out how to word it, because sometimes people just in a state of anger or something, they throw something down and then it gets ignored because it doesn't seem like something that people can figure out. But if you can help them with the wording and they can put it in a way that people respond to, it helps.
Yeah, that's good. Who's going to answer the phone? You won't get anything done. Be real, says Farmer.
Call my number right now, see what happens. Farmer.
If you're Mesa residents and you have questions for Ryan, he just gave you his phone number. So if you have serious questions that might tip your vote in one way or another, I would encourage you to call or text him. Ask him directly. Don't just look online and read shit up. He just gave you his phone number so you can ask him questions or clarify things, especially if you're going to vote for him. I mean, that's excellent. How many of these other candidates have their phone number out where people can call and ask them questions regarding whether or not they want to vote for him? You know, how do you feel about this directly? I don't think any of them do.
I went on the city clerk's website and checked the numbers that are on there to see what they were, and majority of them are like a Google account, or something where it goes to like an answering service or something like that.
Oh yeah.
My wife's over here. I just got home and she's all excited about she's like, yes, awesome.
Heck yeah. I mean, I want you to be mayor, and I want the people that follow my channel that have been here since the beginning, since Mesa, the Mesa residents that follow my channel to realize that I've never put support behind anybody like this before. So the fact that I'm even doing that and doing it live on my main YouTube channel should show you how serious I am.
Yeah, I've been surprised. There's a sorry, you got interrupted. There's a woman named Oops, I Broke My Neck, and she also has not in the past done stuff, but her big thing is around ADA and access because she's in a wheelchair. And she's like, this is the first time I've done this. I'm doing this now. I think people, especially in our age groups, are starting to realize if you have a platform, especially locally, you can do a lot about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, government officials, they pretend like they don't pay attention to DirectD, but I know for a fact that they are obsessed with me. And all because I got a little YouTube channel and I've got a voice.
That's the issue with analytics, right? You can actually see. I think people don't realize that you can actually see who's looking at you.
Yes, I think I just actually looked the other day. 78% of my traffic on just this YouTube channel is from the United States. So 78% of my viewership of almost 300,000 subscribers is from the US. Now, I wonder how many of those are from Arizona, considering that I specifically focus mostly on Arizona stuff.
Right. I used to have a tracker on my website because my website would then go to the social medias, and I would see a lot of them coming from the city. Like, you can see where it came from, and they came from city URLs. And I was like, okay, I see what's going on.
Yep. I get a lot of especially on Facebook. I know a lot of my viewers come from Mesa, Chandler, Scottsdale, and Phoenix.
Right. Yeah. So you got the. I mean, I think people don't understand sometimes too that Mesa is kind of always fighting with Tucson for the second largest city in Arizona. So whatever happens policy wise in Mesa, generally or Phoenix will spread to the other cities because they take that as like a best practice. So if we're doing something, excellent in Mesa with policing or, the way someone responds or city services, that'll easily spread.
Yeah, Mesa's like a test ground. What I've noticed is if the state's going to introduce legislation, it starts coming out of Mesa. I mean, that whole HB 2319 8-foot recording the police shit. Mesa and Tucson worked together to create that for me and 3 other YouTubers in Arizona. There's nothing about protecting the police or none of that. It was about stopping fucking cop watchers.
I just don't get that. Why do people care if they're being videotaped? Who cares?
Well, if you know that you're training people, you're not fully training them to understand people's rights and how to execute their job properly. It's like having, a med school, a person that's doing some kind of test with the doctor standing right over their shoulder that knows everything that they're doing and can point out in real time when they're making their mistakes. I mean, that's kind of like what we're doing cop watching. We're out there policing the police in real time, and we know every time that they make a mistake just by watching them, and they fucking hate it when we point it out, and then we put it online, and then they get hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of phone calls and emails. I mean, when you become mayor, you're gonna have access to city records and shit. So I would take it upon yourself to go look at how many phone calls the police department and the city has gotten just about me alone. Phone calls and emails. Bro, your mind is gonna be blown when you see that. That's why they fucking hate me, is because of the pressure that this YouTube channel creates.
All right, yeah, I'll check it out.
It's a lot. They were to the point. Now they're to the point where they have a second phone line set up at Mesa PD. And if you call about DirectD's YouTube videos whatsoever, they will send you to a voicemail and totally avoid your question. And they've done a new policy at the police department where if somebody's calling in complaining about one of my videos or something that I post or somebody else posts, and then they get like threatening phone calls or emails, they're actively opening criminal cases if they can figure out who those people are and charging them.
Yeah, I remember you had 15, 20 folks that were with you the day that I saw you at the court date. And I remember everyone there too was being very careful as to their name being out or something because they were worried about that.
Oh yeah, you could tell they were all nervous that I was there. The guards, everybody. I don't know if you were there at the last portion of that, but were you there at the end of it?
Yeah, we all walked out together, and actually, I saw some of the guys at the front. They were like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, oh, "I'm here with DirectV." And they're like, "Oh, really? Why?" And I was like, "Because I needed to check it out, man. You know."
Oh man, you remember what I told the judge? He's like, he got up and I was like, "You got 5 minutes. If you ain't back in 5 minutes, I'm leaving."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. Like, this dude was actually at my court dates. How many other people do you know that have supported, a YouTuber and gone to their court dates? It's usually just their random audience online. It's never anybody that's been affiliated or that is seeking to, become a political figure. I've never experienced somebody coming to or seen it online that had your position or what you're doing right now. You know what I mean? It's like a taboo. Like, most people wouldn't do that because they believe that there would be some kind of negative connotation with you coming and supporting me somehow. Like, I'm not an American and I don't deserve support.
People are actually within the city, they're kind of advised not to do it because of, possible danger and whatever else. I remember people used to give me calls all the time. And number one, I would answer my own phone there. And then I would be like, all right, well, give me an address. I'll come out. Right. And specifically, I remember there was a time when they closed off all the alleys. So the alleys used to be used. Right. And then after a little while, they put those green gates. And instead of having to deal with it ourselves as a city, we said, you know what, we're going to give the keys to the neighbors and it's yours now. We're like giving it back. Now you figure it out. Right. And so there was all kinds of arguments about, oh, they're leaving the gate open, or, oh, this guy's using it as a back driveway now, and blah, 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 blah. And I just I'm like, you know what, how about this? I'll show up, get all your neighbors together. We'll talk about it. And we solved a lot of issues that way. Some people kept it as their driveways. Some people just locked it off, But showing up, I think, was key to like making something not explode.
Yeah, it shows that you care and that there's seriousness involved and that people aren't just going to get blown off, which is important. Because I just think it's crazy that most politicians will they'll sing you this nice song and dance, and they'll tell you all the pretty things that you want to hear. We're going to stop the fentanyl crisis. We're going to keep the border closed and blah, blah, blah. But none of it happens. And then when they get elected, they totally forget that they were telling you all this shit and that they were singing pretty songs to you and they promised you all this stuff. That's what drives most people nuts when it comes to voting. And I can level with that. I mean, bro, how many times since we've been alive have we had politicians, like federal levels, people that have said all this pretty shit, and then what happened? Nothing that they said.
I can't even stand anything national now because I feel like it's like this weird like telenovela we're watching, you know what I mean? And it's like, all right, this guy's saying this and there's some drama around it and there's that. And next thing you know, like it's the next one. And you're like, oh my gosh, like what even happened? Did I vote? I don't know. Did I vote? Like I thought I did, but So now I just tell everyone, just stick with local. If you hate everything else, that's fine. Just stick with local, because you're never calling any of your senators. You're not going to call any of those people, for anything, but you will call your mayor, your city council, your school board, your whatever, all these people. You'll call them and they'll answer.
Yeah.
And you can see them.
Huh?
And their house is generally listed on, public information because it has to be. I list mine publicly anyways, and I have people show up all the time, but my family hates it, but it's kind of a thing,
It's really easy to find government officials' property. I mean, if you have their name, you can just go to the county assessor, and if they own the property or any property in that county, I can find it.
They're supposed to list it too. If they have their campaign is supposed to list anything that they own and make money on while that is happening.
I didn't know that. That's nice. That's cool.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be like a disclosure transparency layer type thing, right?
Right. Well, it's also supposed to say that like, okay, like during this campaign time, I had this much or amount of wealth or property or whatever. And then at the end of this, now I have this and that. So they can see if someone's like, oh, wow, weird. They got like 2 more houses during this campaign time. I wonder how that happened, or whatever it is. You'll see often too that public officials especially if they're about to win, will get a new high-paying job that kind of has a like no real job. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he's a public-facing community engagement person or something like that, to like one of the big corporations or Southwest Gas or one of the corporations, and you'll see that a lot.
Interesting. I'm looking for,
yeah, they're considered part-time positions, so that's why.
Part-time what?
Positions.
Oh. Anybody in the chat have some questions? I know Ryan's got some other stuff to do, so I'm going to wrap it up. If you have anything that Mesa voters should know, you want to say before we wrap it up, I'm just waiting for anybody that has any relevant questions in the chat.
All right. While you're happen, just one thing you should think about: Mesa is a sales tax city. We don't have a primary property tax. We have a sales tax, and every 2 years or so they bond to pay for other things, right? We also get development fees and some other stuff, but really we run on sales tax. So when you get your water bill and it's super high, that's the city of Mesa figuring out how to level out its budgets or use it for things, because Mesa has its own water, sewer, and its own electrical utility services. Oh, 602-741-6465. That's 602-741-6465. You can see it on all my signs. It's everywhere. I put it everywhere. It's even on public signs, so you can find it. Even if you look me up, you'll see it on the Google listing and all that. But just watch always ask what you're what you're paying for, because they hide the projects in the enterprise account. So there's the general account and the enterprise account. The enterprise account is all the income from those services that can be disappeared when it's transferred over into the general account, right? So it's like, oh, there's this money and it went for something.
Mark Williams says, Mr. Winkle, aren't you worried about political and police retaliation?
Man, retaliation, I've experienced it for a long time. When I decided to openly run for this position, I had started a nonprofit that helped neighborhoods and small business that I've been working in for the last 10 years. And, the retaliation from the big dogs came in them getting my board to say that they didn't want they did not want a candidate for mayor to be running while being the executive director. And so I had to give up my position. That's a retaliation. Can I prove it? No. That sucks that I can't prove it. It's interesting that they've hired elected officials after that that aren't me. So you know what I mean? There's something about that, but there's retaliation, and it happens already. So, and luckily, I think Direct D says too, is that there's good police officers out there. There are police officers that have saved my ass many times and have called me and said, bro, you're being followed and I'll prove it to you, do this, right? And these are officers that are inside the force, but they also are tired of having to deal with the nonsense. They just want to go out and perform a service and be like, yeah, cool. All right, cool. You're good. See you later. Glad to be of service. That's what they want their job to be like. They don't want to have to pull guns and fight people. They would rather have an easy shift like any of us would, right? So I think majority of folks in the city, all the city workers, there's 4,000 something city workers. And the only people who have big problems are the ones the top 20, The rest of them are super cool.
Hey, what you said about most police just want to do their job. I think any police officers that are listening right now should really contemplate that, because when I'm talking about the culture, a lot of them are going to know what I'm talking about. So the police culture in Mesa right now is a go along to get along kind of culture. If you buck the system, they'll throw you under the bus, and the whole city will, including the council, will come out and approve whatever the police department does. Because that's just how shit works. So I think that Ryan might have it in his mind to attempt to at least try to change the culture so policing can get back to policing instead of this giant gang that's roaming around the city harassing people.
Yeah,
Because
not
if
only
you
that, you know, there
go
was
ahead.
there was a time when I remember growing up, you know, in my neighborhood, there was like one kind of officer assigned to that area. And if I saw him, I wasn't like, oh crap, here comes the cops. I was like, hey, what's up, officer, or whatever your name is, you know, and it was just kind of like, yeah, because he was always there and he was chill. He wasn't there to do anything to me. He was just there like, yep, just checking things out, you know. Awesome. Nice to meet you, you know.
Community policing,
Yeah. Well, that's like the
knowing
guy
the community.
Brandon Mendoza, right? The neighborhood that he South Side Mesa is a neighborhood that's had tons of horrible issues with the police, but they love him because he would always be over there. To this day, there's a shrine for him in their neighborhood on the sidewalk, you know, set up for an officer in a neighborhood that mostly doesn't like police, you know. So there's something to it.
Yeah. I mean, they're not cops are not hated in general, I don't think, but except for by a small majority of people. It's people hate bad cops and bad policing. And it's an issue that I don't really see getting talked about much amongst political leaders, which is one of the most important issues that the people that vote these people into office face every fucking day when they get into their car. I mean, your threat isn't coming from some migrant. It's not coming from a magical pill that's going to float into your car. It's coming from a cop that's going to pull you over for speeding or not using your blinker or something. And everybody is susceptible to that. But yet we don't hear the president talking about shit. We don't hear like, federal government officials. Well, you need to fix policing. They're always like, we support the police, but that's not what the people are saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's also around that guise of like, am I safe? Okay. Like, do I feel safe? And
Yeah.
where does the safety come from? You know, like, am I glad that I can pick up the phone and call the police if I really need like backup of my own? Um, right now, I don't, because I also worry because, you know, I got two little kids that run and do things, you know, I got a wife. There was a person that had come down the 60, you know, bolted off the 60 in a stolen car, came down baseline and turned into my cul-de-sac and rammed the car into like the house. And they're like next to me, right? And then I guess they got out and they ran into someone's backyard and were jumping fences and whatever else. So they came to my front door like, we need to look in your backyard, and they had their guns drawn. I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you until you put your guns down, because like, you know, I got kids. Like, what if they're in the backyard? I don't know what they're doing right now. I'll go look, but what if you run out and they jump out? Are you going to shoot them? You know what I mean? They're like, no, we won't, you know? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know until that scare comes to you. And then you think that they're trying to get you, you know? And so, I mean, that worried me, you know?
I mean, and that's a good point. Is where does your safety, your sense of safety come from? And for me, it doesn't come from the police. I mean, I've wandered every bad neighborhood in Mesa at all hours of the night with thousands of dollars in camera equipment, expensive cell phones by myself sometimes. I've never, ever, ever, ever been fucked with walking around on the streets by another person. The only people that have ever fucked with me in Mesa is the police. I am more afraid of the police than anything else, of them shooting me at a traffic stop, or, you know, when I walk up to a police situation holding the cell phone, are they going to think I'm holding a gun and just start mag dumping on me? Like, that's what I'm worried about. I've never had a concern ever in Mesa that somebody is going to rob me or something. Like, that's not the
Yeah.
vibe on the street. I've spent hours on the street, and that's not the vibe. I mean, the cops don't bust criminals in Mesa. They fuck with the homeless and people that look suspicious.
Yeah. I've lived in one of the highest calls for service areas in Mesa for, actually almost all of my life. Right. And so, the only person that's ever pulled a gun on me and pointed at my face were police officers. And both times they were looking for somebody else, and I happened to be like walking there, you know? And I'm like, what if I did something weird and like tripped, or like, what, you know, who knows? Like, you know, went for my cell phone to start recording, and then, oh, that was I think about that.
I think about what if this is 25 years from now and this is my son encountering this cop, and in policing has gotten worse, and he reaches in his pocket to get his ID out or something and the cop shoots him. I've got 3 sons, so that kind of shit is what's burned in my experiences, being experienced by my children, and them not being me, obviously, and handling the situation different. And now I have to rely on, is this cop going to shoot my kid because he didn't know how not to move around a police officer or something, like, or he thought that this was okay? Like, that's the shit that scares me. That's
Yeah.
my vested interest in all of this is, I mean, I'm a felon, dude. I'm almost, I'm heading towards 40. There's nothing going on for me. I don't care. I care because of my kids. That's the only reason I give a shit. If I didn't have kids right now, me and you wouldn't be talking. I wouldn't be making YouTube videos about the cops. I wouldn't give 2 shits because I didn't before I had children. I didn't care. It didn't mean anything to me. Now it means everything to me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel it's very similar because now that changed. Like I said earlier, we were talking about kids and how it changes your perspective. And now I'm like, okay, well, if something happens to me, what's happening to them? If something happens to them, like because I didn't teach them something, or policing gets worse, or whatever it is, and the things, so many things that happen now.
Yeah, that's my number one concern. Somebody had a question here. Mr. Winkle, are you on police transparency? Would you push police to release body cam footage for transparency, even if opened up Mesa to liability for a lawsuit just because it's right?
Well, yes, and the reason is because like we said, number one, it takes forever to get the Freedom of Information Act. There needs to be a timeline on it, period. And like we said, we're talking about the city as a corporation versus the city as its people. If we're looking at, if my vision is the city as its people, then absolutely we're releasing that body cam. And if the city's getting sued, the city's getting sued because it's the right thing, right? Like there was an issue a long time ago in a lawsuit against the city that they said, hey, our grass was being overwatered, and we knocked down all these fences, these block fences that are all these years old now because we eroded. What should we do? Because we're going to owe a lot of money if we like admit this. And I'm like, just pay them. Like, like we did it. It was our fault. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can say about that. It's very obviously our fault, so it's like, yeah, you're going to spend some money, but come on, you did something wrong,
Yep, you got to fix your mistakes instead of hiding from them, and that seems to be what the government's good at doing right now, is not owning up. It's crazy how they'll preach, just own up to it, just tell us the truth, but it doesn't work in reverse.
Right. And I think there was a question about like someone, what are you doing about first responder mental health? And I think a lot of these things preventatively, and really working from a place of empowering people instead of enforcing, like by force. I think that alleviates a lot of first responders' mental health because you're not trying to force somebody to do anything. Like they're inspired to help you and to be with you, instead of saying, now, do it now. Like, what is the timeline on escalation?
Yeah, well, there is no de-escalation training, so that's a fallacy that people believe in. There's a class that they're told to take, but there is no real de-escalation training. So Mesa has the same policy as Phoenix, where escalation is de-escalation. If they can be the alpha in the situation, it'll calm it down. And I've personally experienced that. When you get back, I tell them, no, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing nothing. It escalates. It doesn't get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trained that you must take control of the situation. Like, what?
Yeah. Which is why, like at some point you're kind of like, wait, what am I really fighting about right here? I often see it's like, well, you need to go over there to that curve. And you're like, what's the difference between that curve and this curve in all reality? You know what I mean? Oh, well, that one's out of the scene. Or if you're even de-escalating one, you're like, look, man, like, I don't want to be here and you don't want to be here, but there's an issue. And if you can just chill and sit there for a second, we're going to be okay. I mean, like if you're talking to someone like that versus sit down over there now, because I told you to, that's a big difference in the way people are going to react. Right.
Yeah. There's some basic cops that I've had interactions with, and they were completely respectful. And what's funny is when I'm out cop watching and I see those officers, I skip that traffic stop because I know what kind of dude that is. I don't need to stop there anymore. I don't think that he's going to do anything crazy to those people. I don't think he's going to mess with me. So it would be a complete waste of my time to go there and try to hold somebody accountable that I already believe is doing their job properly. That's what a lot of these
Yeah,
cops don't understand is like, there's a reason that I only focus on certain areas and certain cops because those are the ones that show me I need to.
yeah. So in fair housing, so in the I work in the Arizona Fair Housing Center right now, and our goal is to catch, landowners and management companies doing good things. Because I don't want to go and be like, look, dude, I have to enforce on you the power of HUD and like the law. Because now you have to open a case, you have to do all this stuff. Like I'd much rather be like, dude, I'm so glad that you're doing things good. Have a great day. Now I don't have to come back, ever, for a long time. It's just easier.
Yeah, it's easier. It's not what people are used to though, so it's going to be interesting to see it actually implemented. I think it might be the tide change that's needed because people keep fucking, I'll be honest, people keep voting dumbasses into office. And, we have an opportunity to not do that this time. Let's be a little intelligent.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So it's winkle.com. And there's another question about, police having business insurance. And I think we kind of went over that with qualified immunity, which is kind of like their insurance. But at the same time, how do you feel about holding them financially accountable? I wonder if they are referring to having like each officer having their own personal, like what is that? Like a errors and omissions or something like that,
They'd have to be bonded.
Yeah.
Bonded or insured, just like a business. So if something went wrong, they are personally responsible as opposed to the city dishing out money to defend them or pay a lawsuit out, which would work better to quell the police violence as well as stem a financial tide essentially that's happened, or a hemorrhage, a financial hemorrhage in the city every time a fucking lawsuit comes in. And they're always coming in. They're always coming in. If these people had to maintain their own sense of responsibility when it comes to how they operate on their job, like you want to shoot somebody, then you're going to get charged and you're going to get sued. The city's not going to get sued. It would change policing drastically. Bro. These cops are not going to just be shooting people and throwing them on the ground and punching them in the face anytime. They're gonna check themselves at the door first, or they're not going to be a fucking cop for very long, which is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? Who knows? But that's what needs to happen.
It's kind of that, there's a lot of ideas that someone can have. Like I was talking to an insurance person the other day, and I was like, you know what? I haven't had insurance in so long. But somehow big corporations can form insurance groups and insure their people for like a fee, right? Like, why couldn't the city form a big insurance group as like the Mesa Insurance Group and insure its people? Like, is that a weird thing to think about? I don't know. Like, why don't we look at options?
I think Mesa does have an insurance group specifically for the police. There's a policy for them, but it
No, I'm talking about like it's citizens, right? Like, because they have it for their employees, and there's almost 4,000 some employees.
That'd be interesting.
I'm saying as a person, like I haven't had insurance, but I live in Mesa, and all the people around me, like I'm willing to bet half of the people don't have insurance,
which is crazy. And anybody that says that, oh, it's expensive, cops can't just afford their own insurance, bullshit. I had a $3 million general liability commercial insurance policy that I paid $200 a month for. I could do anything on city property. That I could climb trees on city property. I could climb buildings on city property because I had a general liability insurance. I could do fucking anything on public property because I had my own insurance. So if somebody's saying, oh, cops can't afford that, nah, you're full of shit. That's a $3 million commercial liability. And then I had a $3 million workers' compensation policy. So it's $6 million in coverage for my business and its employees. And it's not an excuse. So, well, we can't afford it. We can't do that. Like, it's a whole lot cheaper for the city and the government to make that happen.
All right, man, I got to get going to my next event at 5. But
I agree. I got to go. Yes, this was a good conversation. I think it was productive, and I really hope that those of you listening take everything you heard and go to the ballot box and cast your opinions.
So
It's important.
winkleformayor.com and 602-741-6465. I keep my phone on me, and so go ahead and use it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Have a good one, man. And we'll be in touch.
All right.